We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph and Meseches Shevuos. This is Shevuos Daf 44a. On the previous Amud, Shmuel said that let's say a malva has a mashkon, he takes collateral on a loan, and the collateral is not worth at all what the loan was, but then he loses that collateral. So Shmuel says the whole idea is that he has to have the collateral in order to be able to collect the loan. If he loses the collateral, even if he were going to pay back for the collateral that he lost, but he would not be able to collect the loan. That was what Shmuel said. And the Gemara suggested on the previous Amud that maybe that's a machlokas tanoim, because the Gemara brought a brisa, and the brisa seems to have a very similar machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Case over there is again that the collateral is lost, and Rabbi Eliezer says that the malva is still able to collect, and Rabbi Akiva says the malva is not able to collect. And the Gemara clarified in the previous Amud, well, what exactly is the case? If the case over here is that the collateral, if the case in the brisa is that the collateral was worth the entire amount of the loan, so then my time is Rabbi Eliezer. So then what would the reason of Rabbi Eliezer, what would his reason be? Why would the lova have to pay in a situation like that? The collateral was worth the whole loan, so really the malva had that collateral, and therefore there's no reason he should be able to collect. So Elalav, says the Gemara, rather is it not, bedelo shavi shir zuzeh. We're talking about a situation where the collateral is not worth the amount of the loan, and so that's exactly the question, whether or not the malva is able to collect when he loses that collateral. Uvid Shmuel kamiflagi, and there's a machlokas tanoim here in terms of what Shmuel said. The machlokas tanoim is, does he lose the right to collect or not? And Rashi explains, bedelo shavi shir zuzeh askinan. Again, the Bryce is talking about a situation where the collateral is not worth the amount of the loan. Uvid Shmuel kamiflagi, and the Tanaim over here are arguing on what Shmuel said. Rabbi Eliezer lesle de Shmuel. Rabbi Eliezer does not hold of Shmuel. The mashkon she'eno shava kol achov, because he holds when you have collateral which is not worth the entire amount of the debt, ein adam makavlo ela lezichron devarim. The only reason a person is taking that collateral is in order to remember that there is such a debt. And hilkach, therefore, shomer chinam hu alav. Essentially, he's a shomer chinam. He's an unpaid watchman on the collateral. V'yishava shelo pasha v'she'eno b'reshus. So all he has to do is swear that he was not negligent and that it's not in his reshus. V'yitel kol ma'osav, and then he'll be able to collect all of his money. Rabbi Akiva, kishmuel svirlei, he holds like Shmuel, shalashem mashkon kiblo, that he accepted it as a mashkon, meaning the idea is that if he doesn't have that collateral, he's not able to collect it all. And Rashi addresses the last case of the brisa, aval hilveyu elef zuz b'shtar. Now let's say that loan would be 1,000 zuz and there would be a shtar, there would be a document. So in that situation, afilu Rabbi Eliezer moda, even Rabbi Eliezer would admit, shahamashkon shekibal acharei chen l'shem mashkon kiblo, that mashkon that he's accepting afterward is being accepted as a mashkon, sharei eno tzarech lo lezichron devarim, because then he doesn't need to remember it, shahashtar lo l'rai, he has the document as evidence. And so therefore in that situation, Rabbi Eliezer actually would admit, but the point over here again is that they're arguing in terms of Shmuel's halacha. And the Gemara continues, lo, no, we don't have to explain the brisa in this fashion. Rather, b'delo shavi, if you have a situation where the collateral is not worth the amount of the loan, it could be that kuli alma leslu de Shmuel, really nobody agrees with Shmuel, and meaning to say, really technically speaking, you really should be able to still collect the loan. V'hacha b'deshavi shir zuzeh, but over here, the case in the brisa actually is where the value of the collateral is the amount of the loan. And so what's the machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva? Over the Rabbi Yitzchak kamiflagi, they're actually arguing in the halacha, in the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak. Diyama Rabbi Yitzchak, because Rabbi Yitzchak says, minayin lebal chov shekona mashkon, from where do we know that a bal chov, a creditor, when he takes the collateral, he actually acquires the collateral? And the point over here is that if he acquires the collateral, he has a higher level of responsibility. That's what Rabbi Yitzchak says. So how do we know that a bal chov acquires the collateral? Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, ulechoti at tzedakah, it says it's like a tzedakah. When you give back, let's say every single day, you'll give back the person that he can use his garment, which you took as collateral, that's considered like a tzedakah. Now, imeno kona mashko, now if the person does not acquire the collateral, tzedakah minayin lo, why would that be considered tzedakah? It must be that there's some kind of acquisition of the collateral. Mikan lebal chov shekona mashkon, from here we see that a bal chov, a creditor, acquires the mashkon. And Rashi explains, Hachi Garcinon, Ida lo shavi shir zuzeh, if the situation was that it's not worth the amount of the loan, to kuliyama leslu de Shmuel, then nobody would agree with Shmuel. Again, everybody would say that he can still collect the loan. And rather, uvid Rabbi Yitzchak kamiflagi, rather over here we're talking where it is the value of the loan, and they're arguing in Rabbi Yitzchak. And the idea over here is that Rabbi Eliezer lesle de Rabbi Yitzchak. According to Rabbi Eliezer does not hold of Rabbi Yitzchak. V'eino olav ela shomer chinam. That's why Rabbi Eliezer says he's only a shomer shomer chinam on the collateral. He's like an unpaid watchman. V'afa pishu mashkon gomer, even though it's a mashkon gomer, but he's only like an unpaid watchman, and therefore essentially he's not responsible. He can be not responsible for that loss of the mashkon, because the shomer chinam is only responsible for pshia, is only responsible for negligence. And whereas Rabbi Akiva says no, he actually is responsible for that mashkon, because the Baal Chov is kona the mashkon, and in this case again the mashkon is the same value as the debt, and therefore the malva is not able to collect the debt according to Rabbi Akiva. But the Gemara continues, Leima de Rabbi Yitzchak Tanoihi, but according to that, are we saying that what Rabbi Yitzchak says is actually a machlokas Tanoim between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva? But the Gemara says, V'tizbar, 1 second, is that even logical? Amor de Amar Rabbi Yitzchak shemashkano shalo b'shas halva. Rabbi Yitzchak's halacha, he said his halacha in a situation where the collateral was taken not at the time of the loan, but mashkano b'shas halva. But if he took the mashkon at the time of the loan, mi Amar, did Rabbi Yitzchak even say his halacha in such a situation? And Rashi explains, Amor de Amar Rabbi Yitzchak shemashkano shalo b'shas halva also. Let's say he took the mashkon not at the time of the loan. Could go in al yedei bezin, for example, through the court, he took this collateral. Tevahachi mishtoi kra, because that's what the pasuk, when it says ulachati at tzedakah, that's what the pasuk is talking about. Techsev la'el minei b'chutz tamod v'oish v'amar ze shliach bezdin. The master says that the pasuk is talking about the shliach bezdin. The bezdin took it not at the time of the loan. You take that mashkon. That's where Rabbi Yitzchak says there's an acquisition of the mashkon. But Rabbi Yitzchak wouldn't say that if the collateral was taken at the time of the loan, and so therefore it cannot be that we're talking about a machlokus within what Rabbi Yitzchak said. And so the Gemara continues and says, Ella rather, mashkano shalo b'shas halvaso kuli alma lo pligi, the islu de Rabbi Yitzchak. Actually, if the mashkon would be taken not at the time of the loan, there would be no machlokus. Everybody would agree with Rabbi Yitzchak that there is that higher level of responsibility. There's an acquisition of the mashkon. V'hachen over here, b'mashkano b'shas halvaso. Here the case actually is where the mashkon was taken at the time of the loan, and the machlokus between, again, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva is uveshomer aveda kamiflagi. They're actually arguing about the same machlokus of a shomer aveda. Let's say a person is watching a lost object, he finds a lost object, and now he's watching over it until he can find the original owner of the object. So there's a machlokus, what status does a shomer aveda have? And that's the machlokus over here as well. The Itmar, as it was stated, shomer aveda, when it comes to a shomer aveda, Rabba Omar keshomer chinam. Rabba says that a shomer aveda is considered like a shomer chinam, is considered like an unpaid watchman, is only responsible for negligence, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Dalid Amud Beis.